too much for you.
No, that's okay. Just stand a little bit.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah. And where's Dr. Khan and where's Archbishop Makarios? Yeah. I'll call you up at the right. Yeah. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here at the Mass Vaccination Hub in Homebush, which is one of around 27 locations we have across the state administering the vaccines. And today in particular, I wanted to express my deepest gratitude to all of our religious leaders, to all of our cultural leaders across New South Wales who have done an outstanding job during COVID in supporting us getting out the message in what it takes to keep our community safe. If it was not for our community leaders, our religious leaders, interrupting and disturbing what normally happens during the year, we would not be in the strong position we have. Every single religion, every single organisation has had to cancel events, modify what they're doing, have disruption to the holiest days of their year in order to keep their loved ones safe, but also New South Wales safe. And I'm deeply grateful for that and really encourage them to continue to do that. But we know that the next job we have is to make sure all of us get vaccinated. A safe vaccination program, a quick vaccination program means that we keep our citizens safe, but also that we can start thinking about our international borders and reconnecting with families overseas. It's really important for us to make sure communities are vaccinated as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. And we only need to see what's happening around the world and also the outbreaks that we're getting and will continue to get whilst the pandemic is occurring. And the way that we can keep ourselves safe is getting the vaccine, because the vaccine will mean that we're highly unlikely to get the disease in a serious way or die from it. And that's really what the vaccine is about. It's preventing death and preventing serious disease. I want to thank also on this occasion Multiculturalism New South Wales for the efforts they've made in keeping our communities updated. I've participated in a number of meetings myself during the pandemic, but really it's been an outstanding effort by the team to make sure that in all languages, in all communities, we have this information to keep all of us safe. As you all know, I've received my first shot of the vaccination. My 81-year-old mother has as well, and we're really encouraging everybody to do so. I'm going to ask this morning Dr. Khan and also Archbishop Makarios to say a few words about the importance of getting vaccinated. But of course, this message extends to every single citizen in our state. No matter your background, no matter your postcode, please know that the message is simple for us. We need as many of our citizens vaccinated as quickly as possible in order to keep all of us safe and in order for us to be able to move forward and reconnect with the rest of the world. Our last Minister Hazard to say a quick few words, then I'll invite Dr. Khan and Archbishop Makarios to say a few words.
I want to also thank the amazing multicultural community here in New South Wales. It's been a tough 16 months, and many of the people who are standing with us today have been those who have sent the message out to their communities broadly across New South Wales when we needed to actually explain what was going on. They've kept us safe by communicating those messages, and today obviously we're asking that they support us, and they are supporting us, to get those messages out to our multicultural New South Wales. It is critical, no matter where you've come from in the world, if you're living here in New South Wales, to get the vaccine as soon as possible. We've seen what's happening in Melbourne yet again. We know that this virus is raging more dangerously across the world right now than at any time during the last 16 months. My strong message to all of the community, including those in the multicultural sections of our New South Wales community, is book in, get vaccinated as soon as possible. Preferably go to your GP. Your GP knows you best. But if you don't have a GP, then of course you can come to one of our many facilities across New South Wales to have your vaccine. And I stress, you do need to book in for the vaccine. So if you go to nsw.gov.au, you can book in for a vaccine if you're between 40 to 49, or if you're over 50, I'm sorry to say that again, if you're between 40 to 49, you can express an interest in getting vaccinated, and you will be contacted to make a booking. If you're over 50, you can make the booking almost immediately. So get on to nsw.gov.au and make the necessary arrangements. Finally, I want to say this. Obviously, there are some challenges in Victoria at the present time. As Health Minister here in New South Wales, I just want to convey to our community here that it might be wise, it might be precautionary, not to travel to Melbourne or Victoria, but particularly Greater Melbourne, until the Victorian Government is able to provide further clarity on what is happening in Victoria. Obviously, there'll be some who have essential business and you've got to weigh up those relative matters, but if you don't really need to go to Greater Melbourne at the moment, it might be an idea just to leave it for a few days until we get some clarity from the Victorian Government as to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Khan and then Archbishop Macarius.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Minister.
Pleasure.
Our goal is to keep our community safe. The only way that we know how to keep the community safe during a time of pandemic and global challenge at the moment is to get vaccinated. We strongly urge vaccination. Vaccination is safe, and it is the only way that we know at the moment that will prevent us from potential harm. So please, for the community and for yourselves, please get vaccinated. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Archbishop Macarius, would you like to say a few words?
First of all, I would like to congratulate our Premier and our ministers who have organized this great event. As you know, I have been vaccinated with both doses, and I would like to give this very strong message to all our brothers and sisters in New South Wales and in all Australia. The only solution that we have to get rid of the pandemic, the only light that we have to see at the end of the tunnel, is to get vaccinated. And I would like to encourage all the people, it doesn't matter if they are Greek or not, Christians or not, Muslims or whatever, please get vaccinated. Take the decision, don't hesitate, take the decision and act. It's not a matter that we have to protect our life or our health. We have to protect our society, we have to protect our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop Macarius. Dr. Chant will now give us a quick health update, and then I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah.
So I think I'll address my health update to just the evolving situation in Victoria, and can I extend my appreciation to the regular updates we are getting from our colleagues in Victoria and that information sharing which informs our response. My key message is if you've returned from Victoria, particularly in the Greater Melbourne area, but there are some venues outside Greater Melbourne, please continue to diligently check the Victorian Health website for those updated venues of concern. We know that there have been cases overnight, bringing the total to 15 cases in Victoria, and obviously that number will potentially change. But it highlights that there is a lag sometimes in the venues coming on to the website as those case interviews are done. So can everyone please, I urge you, if you've returned from Victoria, ensure that you check that website. Check it at lunchtime and check it again this evening and again tomorrow. We are dealing with an evolving situation. If you have been contacted by Victoria Health or anyone else who's indicated you've been to a close contact venue, you can contact New South Wales Health and we can assist you in getting rapid testing. We can also assist you with assessing your ability to quarantine effectively at home if that's required and assist you where that's needed. I'd like to thank the community who have identified to New South Wales Health that they've been at those venues of concern. In addition, it's critical at this time that you complete those declaration forms if you're coming from Greater Melbourne, and we may be extending that as the situation evolves to other parts of Victoria. But that is just one way. We all play a role. So if you know that your friends or relatives have recently come back from Victoria, please just nudge them. Get them to check the website. That will keep us safe. And the other message is get tested. So while the vaccine is our way out, we know that there's certain behaviours that we need to embed on that journey. And one of those is if you have the most minimal of symptoms, please get tested. You can see from the Victorian case how the disease can be spreading a number of generations that is not recognised. But thank you to those individuals, like when we've had these cases, my deepest appreciation to those cases coming forward and getting tested, who's allowed this outbreak to be unearthed at this point, and it shows the importance of those actions in getting tested. Thank you.
Dr. Chan, while you're there, if I may, this is obviously linked to the South Australian hotel quarantine case. That is way back in the end of April. Do you have any indication about how many people may have travelled to New South Wales from Greater Melbourne during the window of concern on that case?
Certainly the Victorians are investigating, and what they're looking for is if they can track back a cleared linkage right back to that case that was infectious in the community. Obviously at the moment, my latest understanding is that there are some missing links, but on the positive note, their contact tracing has been effective in unearthing these cases, because all of these cases are linked back to known exposure sites or linked to each other. But we do need, so for that purpose, there's many thousands. If you've been to the airport, there are many thousands of people every day that travel, and that's why I'm urging the community. We are very connected to our southern neighbours, and that's why our key commitment is to make sure that you address those venues of concern, recognise the situation is evolving, but also if you have the most minimum of symptoms and you returned from Victoria, please get tested. And also we have put in some additional precautions, particularly asking people that have recently come back from Greater Melbourne and Bendigo not to go into aged care facilities. Again, we take those steps to protect our most vulnerable.
Do we have any close contacts?
Yes, we do. And again, can I just thank those individuals? As soon as they received a call alerting to the fact that they were close contacts, they immediately contacted New South Wales Health. We've immediately got testing done, and I can confirm that 2 of those that were contacted last night are negative, have come back negative.
How many total?
Well, there were 2 that I was aware of, but there were a number of others who had gone to the shopping centre, and as you remember, the shopping centre would have captured a broader group of people. Victoria Health has then done work in looking at CCTV footage, and it's de-escalated some of that. So we can certainly update you, but what I'm saying is thank you to the community. They've done the right thing. As soon as they're aware that those venues of concern, they've been contacting us, alerting us. We can then provide them with the most up-to-date advice, but also get them urgently tested and also assist them if they can't isolate effectively.
Dr. Chan, if someone is from an area of concern in Melbourne and they come back to New South Wales, if they've been vaccinated and they contact New South Wales Health, are they treated any differently?
No. So we know the vaccine is a highly effective vaccine at preventing severe illness and death. It is fantastic. But we know that no vaccine is 100% effective. And at this time where we're striving to achieve no community transmission, we can't have any risk. And so at the moment, regardless of your vaccination status, if you've been to one of those high-risk venues, you are required to quarantine for the full 14 days.
Of the close contacts though, that you've identified, have any of those people been vaccinated, to your understanding?
That wasn't the focus of my questioning last night, but we're certainly happy to do that. I think they were younger, so they may well not have been eligible at this point in time.
On that, Premier, there's I think 2 or 3 of the people who've caught the virus down in Melbourne haven't been vaccinated even though they've been eligible. Is this a wake-up call to tell people just go and get it?
Absolutely. And when we are asked questions about if people are vaccinated, can you treat them differently? Well, at this stage we can't, because not enough of our population has had the vaccine. If the majority of our population had the vaccine, well, of course we could consider different ways forward, but we're still in very initial stages of getting our population vaccinated, and that's why it's really essential. When you look around the world, you look at what's happening in Victoria, I mean, that could happen in any state in Australia. And we don't have enough of our population vaccinated to be able to make a differentiation at this stage. So the more people that get vaccinated, the more we can look forward to having those issues dealt with in the future. But can I also stress and thank the nearly 17,000 people that came forward and got tested overnight in New South Wales. Now that is a great number. But it gives us confidence that if there are any community transmission, and remember, if there is those links established to that South Australian traveller who went to Melbourne, that happened some weeks ago, and this is a wake-up call for us. This is exactly why we followed Dr. Chan's advice. When we had those 2 cases in New South Wales recently, this is why we asked people in certain settings to wear a mask for a week. out of fear that at some time in the next few weeks they could pop up these cases that we hadn't picked up at the time. Now, this is why we asked people to do that at the time, to mitigate the chance of that occurring in New South Wales. Now, I'm not suggesting it won't happen here, but certainly it's important for us when we do get a case and we can't directly find a link, or we know there are missing links, to take that slight mitigation action. But obviously, we have greater choices for our population when the vast majority of our population is vaccinated. That gives us freedom to make decisions. But at this stage, we need people to stick to what we've been saying from day one of the pandemic. If you have the mildest of symptoms, get tested and stay home. If you've been to a venue of concern, look at the advice and get tested and stay home until further notice. If you're a close contact, obviously you've got to be in isolation for those 14 days. So please continue to follow the health advice, continue to maintain good hygiene, good distance, and obviously if you're vulnerable and can't guarantee social distancing in certain indoor settings, it's up to you. It's not a compulsory, but it's recommended that you wear a mask, especially during these times, if you are someone who's vulnerable and doesn't feel you can maintain that social distancing. So there are a number of measures that we've always asked our community to do, and especially during these times when we know there has been community transmission for some weeks in a jurisdiction which has very close ties to New South Wales, that we just ask people to be extra careful, and people have been responding. To have 17,000 tests overnight without a very strong push from us shows us that our population in New South Wales are aware of the risks. They follow what's going on, and I can't be more grateful and deeply thankful for the community for responding in that way. But we ask you in the next few days to continue following the health advice, to continue being on extra alert, given that we know that the virus has to some extent had some level of community transmission in Victoria, and obviously we'll continue to update the community on those efforts.
Premier, the Victorian Acting Premier today said that he's looking at the eligibility criteria for vaccines, that he will have more to say about this later in the day. So they're looking at whether they might allow people who are outside of the 1A, 1B category, even the 40 to 49 category, to get vaccinated. Should we be looking at that, something like that here?
Well, New South Wales has already gone beyond that. We've already started off our own bat, making sure that we invited people in their 40s to express their interest. We've already made sure that we spoke to the Commonwealth Government and they agreed to open up the AstraZeneca to over 50s earlier than usual. So New South Wales has already been on the front foot in that regard. But what we need to do now is make sure we get jabs in arms as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. And that's why I'm deeply grateful for some of our community and religious leaders that are here today to get that message out. It doesn't matter where you live, what your circumstances. We can't predict where there'll be we know there'll be an outbreak during the pandemic. We just can't predict where it will be, when it will be, and who will it impact. But we know that if you're vaccinated, you have that extra level of protection, that you're keeping yourself and your loved ones extra safe, as well as your community members extra safe. And that's really important. So we know in New South Wales that our vaccine strategy is clear. We can't control the number of doses we get. But what we do know is we've got a waiting list of people who want jabs in arms. And as soon as we're getting the doses, we're making sure that we get those jabs in arms. And we need more people to be engaged into the process, so we can make sure that if we do have more doses available in coming weeks and months, that we're able to do it as quickly as possible. And I'm really pleased. I mean, the rate of vaccinations that the GPs are doing is going up. The rate of vaccinations New South Wales Health is doing is going up. We're really starting to get a rhythm, and I'm expecting, again, apologies to anyone who I work with, they know what I'm like, but we're expecting to see those targets pushed through in the next few weeks.
Premier, can we please get your thoughts on the resignations from the...
Can I just ask if there are, because then I can let the community leaders go, is there any other vaccine or health issue? And then great, and then we'll do the other issues. I'll let everybody go after that one, yeah.
Are you noticing any difference in take-up in the vaccine between the multicultural groups and those not?
No, can I say it doesn't matter what your background is, we're seeing a level of enthusiasm and people wanting to come forward and get the vaccine. Now, there will always be pockets of concern. There'll always be people who are perhaps not as enthusiastic as others, but we're making sure that we cover off everybody in the community and get the message across. So it doesn't matter where you live, what your circumstances. English might not be your first language like me, it might be your second language, but we want to make sure that everybody has access to information, everybody feels safe, and at least everybody knows who they can talk to know about their vaccination. We know in some cultures there is a bit of a difference in attitudes to vaccination generally, not just this vaccination but generally, and we want to make sure that we help people through that process.
Should there be perhaps some more enthusiasm from those communities, given the non-English-speaking background that I've assumed many families have been separated for a year, and this will encourage international travel again? Well,
I think there's already a wonderful level of enthusiasm in the community. In New South Wales, we've issued 1.1 million doses of the vaccine already. That's around, nearly 600,000 people have at least been fully vaccinated or got one dose of the vaccine. If 60% of if 2/3 of our population are enthusiastic about getting the vaccine, we're far away from 4 million people. So we've got a job ahead of us. There's plenty for us to do. And I'm actually feeling in the last few weeks that the more people get vaccinated, the more confidence it's giving others to get vaccinated. And there's huge demand out there. Even if you take those conservative figures of 2/3 wanting to get the vaccine, that's still a big job for New South Wales. And so we have plenty to do. And of course, we're continuing to get the message out in every way we can.
There was some surprise, Premier, this morning.
I'll go there and then back there, yep.
Some surprise this morning at the press conference when the acting Premier of Victoria didn't impose any further sanctions or restrictions, particularly given 6 new cases. WA and Queensland have been very tough on incoming passengers. Do we need to get ahead of the curve here and do the same?
Oh, look, I think the response from New South Wales Health is very proportionate to the risk at the moment. Look, there could be, the Victorian situation is evolving to the extent that I would expect perhaps they would have something further to say today or tomorrow about what they're doing to their community. But certainly New South Wales has faced this threat on a number of occasions. So I believe the response we have was very quick, timely and proportionate. But of course, what's happening in Victoria is evolving and we'll respond accordingly. But can I just say, I think we've been very clear on our position in relation to borders. We've been very clear on our position in relation to travel. And obviously, we don't know what's going to evolve in the next few days, and we understand families and people need to conduct business in Victoria. Unless you really have to, we would all wait a few days before you go down there. So unless you absolutely have to go down there, just consider your options, because we don't know what the situation might present to us in the next few days. I promise, Christine. Oh, you're right? Okay, sorry. Who hasn't asked a question yet?
The Minister just drawing on what he said about people in their 40s registering for the vaccine, but
Yeah.
a lot of people in their 40s have also just been receiving the link directly to book in a vaccine. I think it was initially given to New South Wales Health employees. It's now been shared quite widely in local Facebook groups. What are your thoughts on that? Because surely that means that people who are doing the right thing in, saying, registering for the vaccine are going to...
Oh, look, we're finding the vast majority of people are absolutely doing the right thing. So put it this way, once you come to get the jab, you have to fill out consent forms and go through all the identity processes. So if there are a small number of people not doing the right thing, they'll be found out when they get here. So please make sure that you respect the processes. We've had enormous levels of interest, and the good news is our systems are built such that we can cope with the scaling up, but we're also managing the system so that if, for example, there are cancellations or for some reason there's a particular venue in regional New South Wales that can take more people, we're able to get those invitations out quickly. We know that at least 50% of people are booking within the next few days when we send out the call. So we're getting much better at realising the demand and how we can fill in those vacancies. But please know that when you're invited and you've got a booking, that when you come to get your vaccination, whether it's here or whether it's in a regional location, you have to go through the identity and consent forms. And so obviously, if you're not doing the right thing, you'll be found out. Yeah.
And is it on supply right now? Is there any issue whatsoever with supply?
At this stage, we have a good indication of what we're getting across the next 6 weeks, and so we're able to base the number of staff we need and the number of locations we need based on that information.
Comfortable with plenty?
Well, there's enough for us to keep doing there's never enough because we always want to do more, but certainly there's enough to keep us more than busy in the next 6 weeks, and that's why we were really keen. I remember when we first announced the vaccination hubs, people were saying, why are you doing this? People were saying, have you got this strategy? And I hope now people appreciate why we did that planning, because as soon as doses are available to us, we want to make sure we get them in arms, and we also want to make sure that if there are people who have issues, that they go first and foremost to their GP if you're over 50, and then obviously we can take people through our network as well.
On that issue though, is that reason that they're only 6 weeks ahead, is that part of the reason that the pharmacists haven't been brought on yet?
No, we're actually, today we had a great meeting about engaging with our community of pharmacists, so we're starting that process.
When do we think that might be? When do we think they can
Oh,
come online?
well, we're having those conversations now, so very soon.
Is enough
Oh, well, we've been, just so everybody is aware, from the start of the pandemic, New South Wales engaged in translation services. We had community leaders on Zoom hookups with health experts, but also with myself and the Minister for Multicultural Affairs. So we've been making sure that we engage as much as possible, but nothing speaks more loudly than a community leader that you respect or a religious leader that you respect giving you a particular message. So I'm so deeply grateful for all the men and women standing around us today, but also for the hundreds of them out throughout New South Wales, in our regional communities as well, who've been really being our men and women on the ground, getting the message out. And it's really important for us to make sure that everybody feels included in the messaging, that everybody gets the information in a language in which they're comfortable to receive, as well as English. And it's really important for us to do everything we can to get the message out to everybody.
Is there any reason, given the supply and everything, we've got hubs, we've got hospitals, is there any reason that people who are eligible should be waiting?
Only because there's, at the moment, demands exceeding supply. Like we're getting so many people interested, and we've got so many doses. But certainly, we know the GP network wants to do more. A lot of GPs want to get more doses, and they're conversations that I'll have at National Cabinet with our colleagues to encourage that. And when we talk Team New South Wales, we mean that seriously, because everybody needs to be at full capacity for us to get to the targets we want to achieve in New South Wales. I want us to be more ambitious than the middle of next year in terms of vaccinating the vast majority of our population. I want us to be more ambitious in how quickly we do this, because the more quickly we get our vaccination or jabs in arms, the quicker our communities are safer, and the quicker we can make decisions about how we live in a COVID-safe environment moving forward.
Do you have faith in the Victorian health officials to curb the spread of the outbreak?
Oh, look, all states have been tested. All states have different ways of doing things. I would just strongly suggest that we have phenomenal contact tracers, but their job is much more easily done with the QR code system and being able to contact people quickly. So I do encourage other states to try and make sure their systems are up to scratch in terms of just getting on top of it quickly, but far be it for me to give that advice. But I'm just talking about the experience we've had in New South Wales. We've got the best contact tracers in the world, I believe, but their work is made all that easier if people are doing the right thing. If you're a business or a person going to a business or any community organisation having an event, you need that QR code, because it's keeping everybody safe and it's allowing our great health people to try and reach everybody they can. It's not nothing's 100% foolproof, but at least we know that if the health officials can send out a text message to someone immediately, that at least that alerts people to do the right thing.
Dr. Chan, can I just ask quickly, the TGA announcement yesterday on
Actually, I might allow our community leaders to depart if that's okay.
But they can't, I was just saying.
Okay, it's still a health issue. Yeah, sorry.
On the Pfizer vaccine being able to roll out to GPs and not have the same problems, or the restrictions, I guess, of having to keep it in that very cold conditioning climate, fridges, etc. Is that going to rapidly increase the rollout towards the end of the year, make things easier?
Certainly, the Commonwealth has announced that there's going to be a lot of vaccine available towards the end of the year, and I think we're working collaboratively with the Commonwealth in planning for how best to utilise that. So a variety of strategies are being pursued, but obviously we welcome anything that makes the vaccine easier to store and simpler to handle. That does give us more operational flexibility.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. For those of you getting the jab today, all the best. It doesn't hurt. Otherwise, thank you. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Harry. Thank you, Dr. Khan. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Care if you don't mind staying, just in case.
you've got age
Oh, you've got to go. No, you go. You go right.
You've got to age people.
No, 17 we're doing the political things. There you go. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Robbie, are you concerned about the tone of politics in this country, given the dirt file revelations of yesterday, the tone of the way politics is being fought here?
I think the public just want their elected officials to do their jobs and focus on what's important to them. I'll just leave it at that.
I've been asked to ask, will you plan to tour the mice plague areas?
Not specifically, no. Yeah.
Minister Hazard, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We've heard some difficult stories out of the parliamentary inquiry into rural health, in particular the culture between doctors and managers. Doctors are deemed troublemakers if they speak out about any issues, the lack of doctors in hospital. Are country people being left behind here, and in particular country doctors?
Right across Australia, the challenge is to make sure that we get doctors into regional areas. Obviously, it's not a state issue, it's every state issue. And those doctors are often the GPs who are paid for generally by the federal government, but some of them work with us in the hospital system. And most of those doctors get on extremely well with the management of the local hospital, but from time to time, like any big organisation, there will be some issues. And certainly from my point of view, I have made sure that health understands the importance of a collaborative approach in the interest of patients. At the end of the day, we're all here to look after patients and our residents in New South Wales.
Have you been concerned about the stories that have been coming out in the inquiry?
The inquiry is serving to highlight some of the challenges that actually are right across the Western world and indeed right across Australia. And what, of course, it's not highlighting is that 99.999% of patients have very, very good outcomes in New South Wales hospitals and in the New South Wales health system. But we learn from every issue, and many of these issues have been going back some years. There have been a lot of changes that have been made to address each of those issues, but it's still a worthwhile exercise to allow people to express their views and for us to still continue to learn.
Is there any planning underway at the moment to take some of these issues on board and fix those issues at the moment, or is this going to be...
I've instructed New South Wales Health to listen very carefully to each and every issue that's raised at the parliamentary inquiry, and of course they will be addressed.
Can I just also further to Ursula's question, just say that I visit rural and regional communities often, so I just wanted to make that point clear. Yeah.
On that, I might just ask you a more serious version, but essentially, obviously, it's it is expected to cost farmers a lot, and there's warnings that if they don't clear it by winter, it'll come back and get worse in summer. How worried are you about this? What moves apart from that?
Look, our government's extremely concerned about the situation, but we have experts obviously advising us on how we can mitigate. We can't completely eradicate the plague, but certainly support farmers and also communities. It's not just farming communities now, but other communities who are impacted, especially around health and hygiene issues and a whole range of other issues. So we've obviously announced recently a support package to help farmers in that regard. But if there's anything further we need to do, we will. We're taking advice constantly. I'm told the colder months are going to assist. So we are welcoming those cooler temperatures in those locations where the plague's been particularly bad. But we're also considering what we need to do over the course of the next few months and the next 12 months for that matter.
Premier, the loss of Chris Minns this morning, the resignation, the destabilisation of Jodie McKay's leadership, Labor under all sorts of internal collapse here. Healthy opposition is important, isn't it, in our state? What do you say?
Look, I can't really keep up with what's happening, to be honest. Haven't been able to keep up with exactly what's going on, but I think people expect everybody who's elected to Parliament to focus on the community, and when you don't, people notice.
Mr Minns actually said today, Premier, that the opposition actually needs to be more positive and actually more supportive of you, and said you are doing an excellent job with the pandemic. I mean, do you agree that politics needs to be a little bit more bipartisan?
Oh, look, I'll leave that to others, but certainly when you're facing life and death matters in a pandemic or a bushfire or a natural disaster, the most important thing is for all of us to come together and support our communities, and I hope that will happen.
You've watched New South Wales Labor for a really long time. Does this surprise you?
Look, I've said what I'll say. I can't keep up with what's going on, but enough to say that it's really important for me, my government, to stay focused on our job and not let ourselves get distracted.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hazard.
Thank you.
I purposely didn't.